And we are commencing a new series today. It's the mystery series, and I've actually got someone in mind. As I wrote on Facebook yesterday that there was someone who provoked me in a positive sense, and I'll share a little bit of their journey in a moment. But let's pray. Father, as we open your word now, we open the mysteries of your word. I pray that you'll speak into our hearts. Give us ears to hear, I pray, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, the guy who provoked me in a positive sense is someone I've admired for a little while. He's a historian from England, and this is he. This is Tom Holland. Now, if I say Tom Holland to someone like Jared, who's just sitting over there, he's going to go, "Oh, Spider-Man." No, not Spider-Man, although the young actor that played Spider-Man, his name happens to be Tom Holland. This is actually Tom Holland, the historian. He's a senior research fellow in ancient history, specialising in Near Eastern ancient history at the University of Buckingham in the UK. And this is why he provoked me in a positive sense. He's not a Christian. He calls himself an atheist, actually. And he's recently written a book making the claim that Christianity has been the single greatest factor for good in history. The single greatest factor for good in history. And he was interviewed about this, and the interviewer, Shane Morris on breakpoint.org, the interviewer asked him, "How is it that you can have such a high view of Christianity and yet you're not a Christian?" And he went on to share something, and I've got a quote here where this is from a piece about him, where he said, when asked about this, he said that his two great passions as a child were dinosaurs and ancient civilizations. He said, "I had the classic small boy's fascination with dinosaurs because they're glamorous, dangerous, and extinct. And essentially, the appeal of the empires of antiquity is much the same. There's a splendour and a terror about them that appealed to me, and that kind of emotional attachment is something that stays with you." And indeed it did. So Tom Holland's fascination as a young boy, and he talks about around the age of 5 or 6, a typical young boy fascinated with dinosaurs, and his father was an atheist, or is an atheist, and his mother was someone who took young Tom to church every Sunday, to the local Anglican church, and he was taken out to the Sunday school class, and the Sunday school teacher held up a picture book, and the picture book had a picture of Noah taking animals onto the ark, and some of those animals were dinosaurs, Tyrannosaurus Rex and so on. And as a 7-year-old boy, he put his hand up and he said, "Excuse me, what's the deal with the dinosaurs going on the ark?" And the teacher said, "Yes, Noah would have taken dinosaurs onto the ark. That's what the Bible says." And young Tom thought, that can't be true. As a 7-year-old, he realised that dinosaurs were extinct well before man came on the scene. And he had a fascination with things ancient. And so he as a 7-year-old said this: if that's what the Bible teaches, then the Bible can't be true. And if the Bible's not true, then neither is Christianity. And even though he was taken to church every Sunday from that point by his faithful mother, inside his heart, he made a conscious decision that Christianity was nonsense. And he grew up and did a degree in history at Oxford, and went on to become the Senior Research Fellow of History at Buckingham, University of Buckingham. And he's written a number of books on his field, and particularly dealing with Near Eastern. Now, Near Eastern is actually what we might call the Middle East. So you've got Near Eastern would sort of be around Israel, and then you move over a little bit, sort of the middle, and that's Saudi Arabia. And so he's researched the ancient history of this region, and recently, as in about 3 years ago or so, he did a major documentary based on a book that he wrote called The Secret, or the Hidden Secrets of Islam. And he found, when he went to Saudi Arabia to research the claims of the Quran, that the historical claims of the Quran were not only not verifiable, the facts of history refuted them. Things like Mecca didn't exist until the 9th century as a city. It wasn't even on a map before the 9th century. Its description as being a place of fertile, lush valleys and vineyards has never been true. And so he was able to see that when he did the same sort of thing to the claims of the Bible and its historical claims, that he found, this is now, someone in his late 40s, he found, well, hang on, the Bible's historical claims can be verified. As a historian, I can go and I can see the towns and the places, and I can verify that they existed. And so this put what we might call a stone in his shoe. And then in the interview, he was asked about, well, if you're that sympathetic to Christianity, why is it that you haven't just made the final step into Christianity? And this is what he said. He said, I find myself as someone who has investigated the historical claims of Christianity, and I find them to be quite verifiable. In other words, they're true. I find the claims of other religions and their historical claims to be unverifiable, and therefore we can refute them. So I'm only left with one option. And this is what he said. And as I've got older, he's now in his 50s, now as I get older, I find that there's a lot more mystery in life that I just don't understand. And I'm beginning to think maybe some of the questions I've got that I had as a 7-year-old boy are just going to be mysteries for me. How does Christianity and its book, how is it that it's so true about everything? It's so true about its moral standards. It's so true about its claims, even about its central figure, Jesus Christ. We can verify those historical details, he said. And yet, there's things in it that, as a 7-year-old boy, I had questions that I still haven't got answers to. And therefore, I find myself being strangely drawn to Christianity. And this is how he described it. He said, it's as if being outside on a cold winter's night. And you walk past a house, and this house is Christianity. And inside the house, there is an open fire. And there are people warming themselves around the fire. And I go up to the window of this house, and I look in the window, and I see the open fire, and I long to go in. And I feel it drawing me in, but yet I remain outside. So this series over the next 5 weeks or so is dedicated to Tom Holland. I didn't get... No, you won't. I want to talk to Tom Holland, and I want to talk to others. And someone, Rick Painter, who is a friend of mine in Melbourne, he wrote on my Facebook feed when I mentioned this yesterday on my Facebook page, that this is why I was doing the mystery series, provoked by Tom Holland saying, maybe there are just mysteries in life that I'll never be able to solve, and maybe I need to let go and come inside and warm myself on the fire of Christianity, out from the cold and into the warmth. That's what he said. And it's my hope that something of what I share right now and over the next 4 weeks or so will actually give Tom Holland the key to the door and the willingness to open it and to come in. And Rick Painter, he said, well, he's not the only one who had strange ideas about what the Bible actually says. So did Russell Crowe when he made the movie about Noah. Apparently there were rock-eating monsters, rock monsters. So he's got some strange ideas. So I dedicate this also to Russell Crowe, who I'm sure watches each week anyway. Or if you know Russell, shoot him a message and tell him to jump on and have a look at this as well. And maybe we'll correct the idea that there were rock monsters around the time of Noah, but that's certainly what he put in the movie. So here's the thing, that when we introduce mysteries, we do live in a world of mysteries. And Marty, have you ever gone cave diving? Yeah, me either. And so Marty's just over here, was playing bass this morning, and I've got a picture. The background picture is a picture of a cave that you can see the light of the diver, and they go deep down into these things. And I'm going to say nothing would freak me out more than going into one of these things. And I just, and that may simply be, someone might point out afterwards, that's because I lack imagination. There's a lot more worse things that would freak me out, and that may be true. But that really freaks me out. Seeing these movies, these documentaries of someone, when people go into these underwater caves, deep caves with little crevices they have to squash through, and think, how on earth are they going to figure out how to get out? And somehow they do, because they bring the film back and we can watch it. But the reason why they do this, these guys are, mentally disturbed, I'm guessing, but they do this because we don't know what's in there. We don't know what's in there, and we want to find out. So it seems that we live in a world of mystery, and we are driven to explore mysteries. And so this is the mystery series that we're commencing today, the mystery series. And what might intrigue you is that the Bible uses the word mystery in the New Testament alone 24 times. In fact, it describes some of the things most precious to Christians as mysteries. And so there's one epistle in the New Testament that uses it almost the majority of those 24 times. And Paul talks about mystery in just about every chapter of that epistle. I wonder if you know which one. If you don't, then it's a mystery. So when we talk about mysteries, there's different kinds of mysteries, and people respond to mysteries in different ways. And as I've discovered, as I mentioned with my YouTube post about is Bill Gates the Antichrist, I've discovered that people respond to mysteries oftentimes with anger. And in fact, if you have a look there's about 395 people who are angry with me, who've all written very nasty comments. I think I've only deleted one, which is pretty gracious of me, I think. And most of them are just angry. In fact, someone this morning, I think I get about 6 or 7 an hour or something, and whatever it is, and someone wrote just, how dangerous I was and how angry they were at me because I was saying Bill Gates is not the Antichrist. And I'm finding that people are treating the coronavirus and COVID-19 with a great deal of mystery. And of course, YouTube had to take down all the videos that said there is no such thing as the coronavirus. It's actually radiation poisoning from the new 5G phone towers. And I was watching the vice president of, or maybe even the president of YouTube say we had to take all of those videos down. They had millions and millions of views. But what we found was we were getting reports of people vandalising 5G phone towers all around the world in the thought that it would prevent and stop the spread of coronavirus. A virus doesn't happen from phone radiation, by the way. What a silly notion to think that life can spontaneously, because a virus is a life form, that life can spontaneously generate from nothing. Who would believe that? Then, of course, there are people who treat mystery with blame. And this is where, when something happens, and I was last year, I took my life in my own hands and travelled to America on September 11 and wondered if there would be any extra security because, of course, in was it 2001 or whatever, that you had the Twin Towers fall. And then when the towers fall and the Pentagon was also hit as well, it followed a raft of people who said it wasn't the Islamic terrorists, this was actually the US did it to themselves. And they had all these videos supposedly showing that it was actually the US government that did it and all this sort of, and they were blaming people for what they couldn't understand. It was a mystery why anybody would get in a plane and take their own life and seek to take life maliciously. That was a mystery. And so they sought to blame someone, and they said the US government's trying to pick a war with Iraq and this is their justification for it and all this sort of stuff. And people, when they're confronted with mystery, they'll blame people. They'll look for someone to blame. And then there are others who give very simplistic answers to great mysteries. Why is this the way it is? And they might come out with a very, very simplistic answer. And I don't mean simple. Simple and simplistic are different. Some of life's most elegant answers are simple. But simplistic means there's not a lot of thought gone into it. So some people treat mysteries as simplistic, and then there is another group of people that treat mysteries with viewing that, well, it's a mystery, therefore it's God. And this is called God of the gaps. In other words, we don't understand it, it's God of the gaps. One of the great mysteries of life, and I'm going to touch on this in a moment, is how did life begin? I said before, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, who could possibly believe that life could spontaneously generate from phone radiation towers? Who could possibly think that? Well, of course, that is what some people believe, and that life originated spontaneously without any cause or design or intervention at all. And I was interested to watch one of the men who's considered to be one of the 25 greatest scientists of all time, and is voted by his peers to be the most influential scientist today. It's Professor James Tour, T-O-U-R. If you want your head stretched, you might want to go to YouTube after this, not now, after this, and just put in James Tour or Jim Tour, Professor James Tour. He has about 150 patents, scientific patents, things that he's discovered, things that he has patented. And he's a synthetic chemical biologist. And he's an incredibly smart man. This is what he says. He's also a very godly man, someone who has a strong faith in God. And when asked, how do you explain how life began? He said this. He said, well, I know this. We could give the best biochemists in the world. We could get the preeminent biochemists, put them all in a room, give them the best laboratory, give them unlimited funding, we'll give them the proteins, we'll give them the amino acids, we'll even give them the RNA and the DNA, and we'll say, here it is, make life, assemble life. This is what Professor James Tour says. And he says, even with the ingredients, even with the information to assemble the ingredients, they still cannot make life. They can't do it. He said, life, to me, is the greatest mystery in the world. And this is what he said. But he said, I'm a Christian. And I believe that God will one day give us the capacity to unlock this mystery. And he bases that idea on the fact that so many things from the ancient past were completely mysterious. And people just said, well, it's God, you'll never understand it. And then over time, we began to understand about bacteria. We began to understand about viruses. We began to have telescopes that could look out into space and we could see things. We began to search the depths of the ocean, another one of life's great mysteries. What on earth is at the bottom of oceans? And there's all this sort of thing. And so James Tour said this, one day we will be able to figure out this is how the Creator did it. Even if today we had all the ingredients, the brightest minds, we still don't know, but one day we will. And I really appreciated that from James Tour. So here's the question. What is a mystery? I'm going to give you 3 definitions of a mystery. Firstly, a mystery is believed to be something that can never be solved. It can never be known, and it can never be understood. Now, immediately, most men are probably going, oh, I know what you're talking about. I'm married to one. And that can be a definition of a mystery. Women are a mystery. Moving on. Number 2, a mystery is something that is a secret. In other words, someone knows it. It might just be one person knows it. But a mystery is a secret. Thirdly, a mystery is something that science has to date been unable to explain. So, take the question of life itself. So, Dr. James Tour says one day we'll be able to figure it out. We'll be able to figure it out how life can begin, and we'll be able to replicate it. And interestingly, Dr. Fazal Rana says, and when that day happens, it will have taken the brightest minds, the best equipment, a lot of planning, and years and years and years of work. And he says, eventually with all this intelligence involved in putting it together and solving this, some people will say, aha, there you go. Life can begin without any intelligence. That won't make sense. And Fazal Rana has pointed that out, that will actually prove that there must be a God, not deny there is a God. So here's the question. Can we live in this world when it's full of so many mysteries? Can we live in this world when it's so full of mysteries? I want to introduce you to a charming looking chap. His name is Theodore. Now Theodore recently was the focal point of a Netflix a movie starring Zac Efron. I'm always getting confused for him. And Zac Efron plays Theodore, and it's the story of a man who was accused of something, and he had an alibi. He had a fine reputation. And Kim and I are watching this and we're thinking, oh boy, this is going to be one of those injustice things where he gets set up and accused, and eventually he does. He gets accused of this heinous crime, and he's got an airtight alibi, and he's got witnesses, and then when it goes to court, it turns out that the witness couldn't be sure, and it turns out that the police may have led the witness, so it's called leading questions, where rather than letting the witness pick, the prosecution or the police had pointed to someone and said, is that the man? We'll put him in a lineup and see if you can identify him. And so all those, through those things, it was thrown out of court, and he was acquitted. But then he was charged again, and he says, why am I being harassed by the police? And you actually begin to feel sympathy for him. Now, so this eventually led to a trial in the 1970s of Theodore. And I wonder if it would, there will be those who are old enough to remember the 1970s. I wonder if I actually told you his full name, Theodore, also known as Ted, last name Bundy. And here's the problem. It turns out that he was jailed, I think, twice, and he escaped also twice, I think. And Ted Bundy, when he escaped on one occasion, he actually was found to, or it was alleged that during his escape he murdered 2 girls and did some other things, which there are children watching. I'm not going to go into the details here. And when it went to trial, his lawyer, his state-supplied lawyer, basically put his hands in the air and said, look, the best thing we can do is a plea bargain. In America, they can do plea bargains. And Ted said, what kind of lawyer are you? And in the middle of the trial, he sacked his defence lawyer and said, why aren't you defending me? Why aren't you defending my innocence? And as it turns out, one of the victims' bodies had a bite mark left in it that the coroner was able to identify, and was able to produce a photo of Ted's mouth and showed that the unusual arrangement of his teeth perfectly matched the bite mark of the victim. And on that evidence, the court found Ted Bundy guilty of murder. So here's the thing. They didn't have a confession. In this instance, they didn't have a witness, and they didn't have any convincing deal-breaking proof that he had done it. What they had was a whole lot of circumstantial evidence. A whole lot of things pointed to him. And eventually, he was imprisoned, and he was given the death penalty. This was in Florida. And he was vigorously denying that he had done this and claiming that this was a gross miscarriage of justice. And he'd nearly graduated as a lawyer himself, by the way, from the University of Utah. And so that's why he sacked his lawyer and began defending himself and did a pretty admirable job, except he was found guilty based on the circumstantial evidence. Now, what the circumstantial evidence included was over the years, wherever these murders took place, he happened to live in that area. At one point when the police searched his car, they found the exact types of weapons that were used in the brutalising of the murder victim. And there was all these clues, but no hard, solid proof. And eventually when he was jailed and put on death row, he confessed. Well, sort of. Ted Bundy confessed to the brutal killing of 36 women, many of whom he decapitated. The prosecutors actually believe that the evidence pointed to him taking the lives of over 100 women. So they believe he was responsible for the murder of over 100 women. Now, here's the point. The prosecution said we can't hard proof everything. We can't give you absolutely rock solid proof. But what we can give you is the amount, the weight, the cumulative case of evidence that points to his guilt. And on that basis, he was found guilty, and eventually, as I said, just before he went to the electric chair, he confessed to 36 murders. He identified where they were, many of whom had never been found. He identified where they'd find the bodies, and they were found. So this is the point. The prosecution said, it's a mystery to us how he killed many of these women we've never found. It's a mystery to us whether he did it, but we're pretty sure he did it. And they have, I think, good reason to believe that. And so life for prosecutors, for police, for those judges and juries, it often involves an element of mystery, but we live with it. And we live with it because it's reasonable, and that's the key word, reasonable to do so. Life itself presents us with inexplicable, mysterious moments. I want to tell you the story of a man whose name is Morgan Robertson. This is Morgan Robertson. Kind of looks a little bit like C.S. Lewis. And he's a little bit older than C.S. Lewis. And he lived in a very small town. And he wrote a story, he wrote a book actually, and had it published, and no one took any notice of it. The book was called Futility, subtitled The Wreck of the Titan. The Wreck of the Titan. In the book, this is what he describes in his book, which was published in 1898. It was a clear, chilly night in April. The largest vessel, that's what was called the Titan, ever to float at 800 feet long, displacing 45,000 tonnes, and declared unsinkable by all who had seen her gliding through the water, was roughly sleeping 2,500 people peacefully. Then, suddenly, it struck an iceberg on its starboard side while moving at 25 knots. The ship was 400 nautical miles from Newfoundland. The ship sank quickly, and due to an insufficient amount of lifeboats, it took its majority of its passengers with it. The story, as Morgan Robertson describes, was focused on the captain, John Rowland, an alcoholic, disgraced former naval officer who took a job aboard the Titan, the world's largest vessel. Robertson describes it in his story as unsinkable and, quote, among the greatest works of men. The Titan, as we just saw, strikes an iceberg on its journey, sinking and becoming one of the world's greatest tragedies. This is his story called Futility, published in 1898. Now, the similarities between the Titan and the Titanic go far beyond just its name and just beyond the iceberg. The length of the Titan was 800 feet, the length of the Titanic 882 feet. The speed at which the Titan cruised into the iceberg was 25 knots. The Titanic's was 22.5 knots. The Titan held 2,500 passengers. The Titanic held 2,200 passengers, though both had a capacity of 3,000. Both ships were British owned. Both ships were hit on their starboard bow around midnight. Both sank in the North Atlantic, exactly 400 nautical miles from Newfoundland. Both had a severe lack of lifeboats, the Titan holding only 24, the Titanic carrying just 20. Both had a triple screw propeller. Isn't that bizarre? That is absolutely bizarre that he wrote the story in 1898. And this is a picture of the RMS Titanic, the unsinkable ship. And he described it in a story 14 years before it was built. 14 years before it was built. Isn't that odd? That is really, really odd. So, the world is full of odd things. You might be sitting next to one. You might know someone who's odd. You might be married to someone who's odd. I'm just looking around for confirmation. People are not making eye contact. And we live in a world where there are unresolved mysteries, and sometimes these mysteries include things like what we call coincidences. Is there such a thing as a coincidence? Is there such a thing that you can get onto a train, as F.W. Boreham writes, where he and his wife, Stella, got onto a train and names were called out? Would Mr. Frank and Stella Boreham please da-da-da-da-da-da? And they got up, and so did another couple got up. And both couples went forward, and it turns out they were both Frank and Stella Boreham. I mean, what are the chances of that? So he tells the story of coincidences. Life has these odd moments. We have a dream. We have strange dreams. I had a dream in 1986 or so where I dreamt about a girl with bleached blonde hair and multiple earrings in each ear, and she had recently had trouble with her parents, and that had led to her being kicked out of home. And I saw her on a particular street in Melbourne, and where I was living, and I wasn't living on the streets in Melbourne, just to be, that was, anyway. And in the dream, I sat down on a bench and spoke with her, and she told me some of the issues that she was facing, and it was such a vivid dream. And I even heard in the dream that her name was, well, I thought I heard that her name was Ken. That may be a problem. Well, no, that's a problem for me, by the way. If you're watching in Canada, I know you're probably thinking, what's the problem? But anyway, it was a problem for me. And so what happened was, a few weeks later, I met a girl, bleached blonde hair, multiple earrings in each ear, whose name was Kim, praise the Lord. And when I sat down with her, she told me exactly what I saw in the dream. In fact, I knew what she was going to say, and I told her. And she was like, how did you know? And so that's strange. Life is full of mysteries like that. And we see people have premonitions. They have a sense that something's about to happen, and something, all these sorts of things. Life is full of mysteries. Here's one of the greatest mysteries. One of the greatest mysteries. Jeanette, you're over there. What's that called? Deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA. And so that's and this is one of the greatest mysteries in the world. Where did it come from? How did it, because you can't have life without that, but you can't have that without life. It's a mystery, an utter mystery. So scientists, as I mentioned, still cannot explain much about our world, including how the world itself began and how life itself began. This is a mystery. And yet they live with it. Scientists live with the mystery. Biochemists deal with the mystery, accept the mystery, are trying, as I mentioned before with Professor James Tour, trying to solve the mystery. And his team at Rice University are working on some amazing stuff in the realm of incurable disease cures through discoveries and things like this. So there are many things even for a historian. And so now, Tom Holland, I'm talking to you. You're a historian. You know that there are civilizations that just vanished in history. They just vanished, and we don't know why. There are many mysteries involved in history, and we live with it. We get on with the science of history, and we get on with it. Therefore, here's what I want to suggest to someone like Tom Holland, who said, there are many mysteries in life, which is why I haven't yet been able to take that step inside the room and come to the fire and warm myself, because some of these mysteries are holding me outside in the cold. But this is what I want to say, having shown you that there are odd things in life, there are mysteries in life. How on earth did that guy Morgan Robertson write that story about the Titan and get it so precise about the Titanic 14 years before the Titanic was even built? How did he do that? That's a mystery. It's an odd mystery. How does DNA work? Where did it come from? How can you have DNA without life, and how can you have life without DNA? They're simultaneously required. How does that work? That's a mystery. And again, in history. So this is what I want to just make the point, that we get on quite well in life, in a world where we don't know everything. And in a few weeks in August, we're going to have Q&A with Dr. A again. It's our annual event. And it might sound like we can have an answer to everything. There are some things we can't have an answer to. We just don't know. And often those questions begin with, why did God? Why did God? Why did God take my mum? Why did God take my husband? Why did God let my uncle die the way he did? Why did God not answer my prayer? These are all mystery questions. And the point I want to make here is that sometimes we can't answer them. We just can't answer these mystery questions. And for some watching me right now, and I just have a sense that there's someone even wrestling with their sexual identity. And you've asked this question. Why did God make me like this? I don't want these feelings. I don't want this. But it feels like it's who I am, and God must have made me the way I am. Why would God do that? And I've got something to say to you through this series. So we live in a world where there's mystery. And some of those mysteries people treat as deal breakers and stumbling blocks to giving their lives to Christ. That is, coming outside from the cold and coming inside and warming themselves around the fire. So over the next few weeks, we're going to deal with some of life's greatest mysteries. We're going to deal with origins. We're going to deal with destiny. We're going to deal with morality, the right way to live. We're going to deal with these issues and unpack the mysteries. But here's where I want to sort of set it up now. When it comes to God, spirituality, religion, there will always be some mystery involved. There will always be some mystery involved. And the reason for that is very simple, and I think I can attribute this next quote to J.B. Phillips. And J.B. Phillips wrote a book called Your God is Too Small. He was a scholar in the 1950s, and he said this: no one is ever really at ease in facing what we call life and death without a religious faith. The trouble with many people today is that they have not found a God big enough for modern needs. While their experience of life has grown in a score of directions and their mental horizons have been expanded to the point of bewilderment by world events and by scientific discoveries, their ideas of God have remained largely static. It is obviously impossible for an adult to worship the concept of God that exists in the mind of a child of Sunday school age unless he is prepared to deny his own experience of life. If, by a great effort of the will, he does do this, he will always be secretly afraid lest some new truth may expose the juvenility of his faith. And it will always be by such an effort that he either worships or serves God who is really too small, in his opinion, to command his adult loyalty and cooperation. It often appears to those outside of churches that this is precisely the attitude of so-called Christian people. If they are not strenuously defending an outgrown childish concept of God, they are cherishing a hothouse God who could only exist between the pages of the Bible or inside the four walls of a church on a Sunday. Therefore, to join in with the worship of a church would be to become, in their mind, a party to a piece of mass hypocrisy and to buy a sense of security at the price of the sense of truth. And many men of goodwill will not consent to such a transaction. It cannot be denied that there is a little truth in the criticism. There are undoubtedly professing Christians with childish conceptions of God which could not stand up to the winds of real life for 5 minutes. But Christians are by no means always unintelligent, naive, or immature. Many of them hold a faith in God that has been both purged and developed by the strains and perplexities of our modern times, as well as by a small but by no means negligible direct experience of God himself. They have seen enough to know that God is immeasurably bigger than our forefathers imagined, and modern scientific discovery only confirms their belief that man has only just begun to comprehend the incredibly complex being who is behind what we call life. And so I might summarise J.B. Phillips with this quote: if you can explain your God is too small and no God at all. If you can explain your God, then your God is too small and therefore no God at all. There will always be an element of mystery. This is why Christians refer to their relationship with God as a journey, and we also refer to it as going deeper, because God is like that. But here's the good news, I think. We live with this mystery, but when it comes to God and spiritual things, it's not as much mystery as some people might think. And here's why. Just as in the case of Theodore Rudolph Bundy, who was found guilty of murder, and reasonably so, and I'm using that word very carefully, reasonably so, just as a judge and a jury can reasonably reach a verdict of guilty, a seeker, someone seeking God, is there a God? Can there be a God? Can I know this God? A seeker can be reasonably convinced about God. And here's the thing, you may not have all your questions answered. You may still come to realise, just as the prosecution did in the case of Ted Bundy, we're convinced he did it, and they were right. We're convinced we have the weight of evidence on our side, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions we've got. Cold case detective Jim Wallace, who in 20 years of cold case detective work in homicide cold case, he never lost a case. And he said, but I never had a convincing piece of evidence. All I had was the accumulation of evidence. All the evidence pointed to one person, and on that basis, we were able to prosecute. And sometimes the big issues of life are like that. You may never have all your questions answered, especially the why did God questions. So this is where I want to give you the biblical definition of a mystery. It's the fourth definition that I'm giving you now. Some mysteries can be made known only by, and here's the word, revelation. Revelation. It's worth doing a study on the word reveal in the Gospels. Jesus says to his Father, I thank you that you have not revealed these things to adults, but you have revealed them to little children. He goes on and he says, the Son reveals to people the Father. And the Son does this based on whom he chooses to reveal the Father to. This is what we call revelation. Something is revealed. It's a revelation. When we look at the Bible and what it has to say about this, this was one of John Calvin's most favourite verses. Deuteronomy 29:29. The secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things that are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the works of this law. And then we see that Paul described himself as someone who was a steward of the mysteries of God. You see, what we're talking about as far as coming to know God does involve mystery, but it involves a mystery that is revealed. And Paul says this is how one should regard us, as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. I'll be back after this item. After this item, I want to invite you to come on this journey, and even for Tom and for others, to come inside and warm yourself at the fire. Your love is like springtime, and for those who like their garden, we can look at our winter garden and see nothing there, and then as spring comes, we see that new life, the new daffodil bulbs and so on. That was a great song from Sophie and April, and if you liked it, let them know, because that was just, it sounded great in here. And as they said, come tend the garden of my soul, and like a garden I will grow. And maybe that's where you're at now. I want to just give you an invitation based on the fact that I said there is some mystery that is revealed. And here's the greatest revelation you'll ever hear. It comes from John chapter 17 and verse 3. Jesus said this, and this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God. And we're going to be dealing with this, the relationship between solving mysteries and truth, and Jesus Christ whom he sent. That is the most profound revelation you'll hear today. If you want to know God, you have to know Jesus Christ. If you want to know God, Jesus invites you to come to him. And you can do that right now. You may feel like you're a million miles away, and I know that there are some who do. There are some who think that God is a million miles away, and he's not. He's just one prayer away. I want to pray for you now, and I want to invite you to pray this prayer with me. And then I want to pray for everyone who's participated in this worship service. And I'm mindful of Gord and Wendy celebrating their 33rd wedding anniversary today. Congratulations, guys. But if you're watching this now and you feel, yeah, I want to come in from the cold. I want to come and I want to warm my soul at the fire, and I want springtime to begin in my own life, then would you pray this prayer? Oh God, I come to you now, and I ask that you will fill my heart, forgive me of my misdoings, and help me to know you. Take me on this journey that I can walk with you. I pray in Jesus' name. You pray a prayer like that and your life can be different. It can begin to experience the springtime that the girls were just singing about. Now I want to pray. And if you've been watching this on YouTube, please give it a like. If you've been watching it on Facebook, give it a thumbs up and even share it on your wall as well. We'd really appreciate it. But I'm going to pray. Father, may we know the love of God, the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, and the fellowship with the Holy Spirit. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for being a part of our live stream today.